Mr. Patel, does Donald Trump appear anywhere in the Epstein files? 3 minutes ago, Congressman Dan Goldman did what nobody in Washington had the courage to do. He didn't whisper it behind closed doors. He didn't leak it anonymously. He stood up in a congressional hearing, opened a folder, and said the name out loud, directly to Kash Patel's face, on live television, with cameras rolling. And Patel, the man who spent 11 months telling Congress the FBI is fully cooperating with document requests, sat there and couldn't say a single word. Watch what happens when Goldman pulls out the timeline. Watch Patel's lawyers scramble. Watch the half-second hesitation that proves everything. March 11th, 2026, House Intelligence Committee. The question Patel couldn't answer and the 36 buried documents that proved why. March 11th, 2026, House Intelligence Committee Oversight Hearing. On paper, it was routine: budget allocations, personnel updates, standard check-in with the FBI director. Nothing that would make headlines. That's exactly how Dan Goldman wanted it to look. Because if Patel knew what was coming, if he had even a single minute to prepare, to coordinate with his legal team, to get on the phone with the White House, everything Goldman was about to do would have been neutralized before it reached the public. Goldman knew that. Goldman planned for that. And what Goldman did wasn't a surprise attack. It was a trap. A carefully constructed, meticulously researched trap that took months to set up. And Kash Patel walked directly into it. The scene: House Intelligence Committee hearing room. Wood-paneled walls, polished table, cameras pointed at the witness. Patel was already seated when Goldman entered. 3 lawyers behind him, 2 aides with folders, that posture he always has. Shoulders back, chin up. The look of a man who's done this dozens of times and survived every single one. He looked comfortable, prepared, like a man who had absolutely nothing to worry about. Goldman sat down across the table, calm, quiet, almost friendly. He nodded at Patel. Patel nodded back. Nothing in that moment suggested what was about to happen would shake institutions and force a conversation Washington's been trying to bury for over a decade. The first 30 minutes were exactly what everyone expected. Other committee members asked questions: cyber threats, foreign interference, budget requests. Patel handled them with his usual deflections. Standard procedure. Then Goldman's turn came. "Director Patel," Goldman began, voice measured, "I want to ask you about the Epstein documents, the ones your office told this committee would be released on February 14th, the ones that have been sitting in FBI evidence storage for 6 years, the ones that contain information the American people have been asking about for over a decade." He paused. "Where are they?" Patel's jaw tightened. You could see it if you were watching closely, just the slightest shift in the muscle right below his ear. "Congressman, as I've stated in previous testimony, the FBI is committed to releasing all documents that can be released within the bounds of our legal obligations and national security considerations." Goldman nodded. "That's not what I asked. I asked where they are." And then Patel did something trained politicians almost never do. He hesitated. Not a long pause, not something most people would even notice, but Goldman noticed. The cameras noticed. The room noticed. Because in that half-second of silence, Kash Patel made a decision. And the decision he made is the reason everything that followed went the way it did. Goldman pulled out a document, single page, unclassified. He held it up so the cameras could see it clearly. This is an internal FBI memo dated October 3rd, 2025. It was sent from your office to the Classification Review Board. He looked at Patel. It instructs the board to delay the release of all Epstein-related documents that are currently scheduled for public disclosure. He set the memo down on the table. "Would you like to explain this to the committee, Director Patel?" Patel's lawyers shifted behind him. One leaned forward to whisper something. Patel didn't look at him. "Congressman, classification reviews are standard procedure. They happen regularly across all document categories. There's nothing unusual about a review timeline being adjusted based on operational needs. Goldman let that answer hang in the air for exactly 3 seconds. Then he pulled out a second document. This is a letter from this committee to your office dated September 12, 2025. It specifically requests that all Epstein documents scheduled for release be released on schedule. He looked up. No delays, no additional reviews, no exceptions. He set the second document next to the first. Then he pulled out a third. This one was different, longer, multiple pages, not from the FBI. Goldman held it up and turned it slowly so the cameras could read the header. This is a timeline, a document my office put together over the last 4 months. It tracks every single Epstein-related document that was scheduled for release since January 2025. And for every single document, it shows what actually happened. He set it down in front of Patel. Out of 47 documents that were approved for release, Director Patel, how many do you think actually made it to the public? Patel looked at his lawyers. They had nothing, no notes being passed, no whispered advice. He was completely alone. I would need to review the specific details, Congressman. Goldman shook his head slowly, the way a teacher shakes his head when a student gives an answer he already knew was wrong. The answer is 11. 11 out of 47. The other 36 have been delayed, reclassified, or quietly removed from the release schedule entirely. He leaned forward. 36 documents, Director. That's not a delay. That's a pattern. And here's where it got explosive. Because Goldman didn't just have the number, he had the reason. And the reason was a name. A name that appears in connection with Jeffrey Epstein in document after document, year after year, going back to the 1990s. A name that the FBI has been aware of for over 2 decades. And a name that, according to the documents Goldman's office obtained, appears in every single one of those 36 buried files. Goldman didn't say it yet, not at that moment. He was building toward it. Because when you say that name in a congressional hearing on live television with cameras rolling, you don't just make headlines, you make history. I want to focus on one document in particular, Goldman said, opening the timeline to a specific page. Document number 23. This document was approved for release on September 5, 2025. It passed every legal review. It was cleared by the classification board. It was scheduled for public disclosure on September 19th. He looked at Patel. It never came out. Why? Patel shifted in his seat. Congressman, I can't discuss the specifics of individual classified documents in an open setting. This document isn't classified, Goldman interrupted. It was approved for release. It was cleared. It was scheduled. And then, the night before it was supposed to go public, it was reclassified. He pulled out another paper. This is the reclassification order, signed by someone in your office on September 18th at 11:47 p.m., 12 hours before the document was supposed to be released. Goldman's voice got quieter, more dangerous. Director Patel, what's in document 23 that made someone in your office reclassify it at midnight the night before release? Silence. Let me help you, Goldman said. Document 23 is witness testimony. Testimony connected to Jeffrey Epstein's Palm Beach property, and that testimony contains a name. He paused. The name is Donald Trump. The room went completely silent, not the polite quiet of people waiting for the next sentence, the heavy, suffocating silence of people who just heard something they can't unhear. Goldman continued, voice steady. Now, before anyone reacts, let me be very clear. Donald Trump has not been charged with any crime in connection with Jeffrey Epstein. He has denied any wrongdoing. He has denied any knowledge of Epstein's criminal activities. He looked directly at Patel. But here's what the documents show, and this is not speculation. This is not conspiracy theory. This is what's actually in the files that have already been released to the public. Goldman began reading from a document. Flight logs confirm that Trump traveled on Epstein's private jet multiple times between 1993 and 1996. An internal DOJ email from 2020 states, and I'm reading this directly, that flight records reflect Trump traveled on Epstein's private jet many more times than previously reported. He set that document down and picked up another. Witness testimony from a former Epstein employee states that Trump was a regular guest at Epstein's Palm Beach property in the mid-1990s. Another document. Phone records show multiple calls between Trump and Epstein between 1997 and 2004. Goldman looked up. Director Patel, all of this information is already public. It's in documents that have been released. So my question is simple. If this information is already public, why are you burying documents that contain additional references to Donald Trump's connection to Jeffrey Epstein? Patel's face had gone pale. His lawyers were frantically whispering to each other. Congressman, I categorically reject any characterization that the FBI is burying documents for political purposes. Then answer my question, Goldman said. Does Donald Trump appear anywhere in the Epstein files? Patel opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I'm sorry, could you say that again? Goldman's eyebrows went up. It's not a complicated question. Does Donald Trump appear anywhere in the Epstein files? I didn't say it was a complicated question, Patel said, voice strained. I just didn't hear you, my apologies. Goldman leaned forward. Director Patel, you heard me perfectly. You're stalling because you don't want to answer. So I'll ask one more time, and I want a yes or no answer. Does Donald Trump's name appear in the Epstein files that are currently being withheld from public release? The silence lasted exactly 7 seconds. Journalists later timed it from the footage. Finally, Patel spoke. Congressman, I cannot confirm or deny the contents of documents that are currently under classification review. That's a yes, Goldman said flatly, because if the answer was no, you would have said no. The fact that you're invoking classification means Trump's name is in those files. He gathered his documents. Director Patel, 36 documents have been buried. All 36 contain references to Donald Trump. You reclassified document 23 at midnight, the night before it was supposed to be released, because it contains witness testimony about Trump and Epstein. And you're sitting here under oath, refusing to answer a simple yes or no question about whether the president's name appears in files about a convicted sex trafficker. Goldman stood up. The American people deserve the truth, not redactions, not delays, not midnight reclassifications, the truth. He looked at the committee chairman. I move that we subpoena all 36 documents that have been withheld, unredacted, for review by this committee in closed session. And I further move that we hold Director Patel in contempt if he continues to refuse to comply with lawful congressional oversight. Within minutes, the clip went viral. Hashtag the name Goldman said, trending worldwide. News networks cutting to emergency coverage. Legal experts debating whether Patel just admitted to obstruction. And somewhere in Washington, 36 documents sat in a classified vault. Documents the American people were promised they would see. Documents that contain a name Kash Patel is desperate to keep buried. The name is Donald Trump. And Dan Goldman just said it out loud.